Hello there, you beautiful people, and welcome to part 3, our final part of our discussion on piping. Now, in part number 1, you learned about the basic concepts of piping, and you saw that piping is all about connecting the standard output of one command to the standard input of another command. And in part 2, you saw how you can actually pass data through your pipeline, but also take snapshots of the data as it flows through and save those snapshots into a file using something called the T command. Now, the T command is really useful because by doing normal redirection, you break your pipeline, but by using the T command, you can save data but still keep your pipeline flowing. Now, in part number 3, we're going to take that understanding of piping to a whole new level using something called the Xargs command. Now remember, piping is all about connecting the standard output of one command to the standard input of another command. Now, not all commands actually even accept standard input. Some only accept command line arguments, and that's exactly where the Xargs command comes in. The Xargs command allows you to convert piped data into command line arguments for commands that only accept command line arguments so that you can keep your pipe going without having to break it at any point. So the Xargs command is that missing piece that's going to make your pipelines basically indestructible. So we're going to teach you how to use that, and then we're also going to have a summary of piping start to finish to make sure that these concepts really sink in. And by the end of this video, you're going to be the master of piping concepts after you've probably received the most comprehensive explanation of it that you'll be able to find anywhere on the internet. So there we are, guys. Let's go ahead and jump right over now into Ubuntu and see this stuff in practice. Okay, so let's take a look at how the Xargs command works. Let's say that we are, again, playing around with the date command, for example, and we're getting the date that's coming out of our system. Now, what do you think will happen if we take the date command and we pipe it into echo? Now remember, echo is very simple. If I just take echo and I say give echo hello, it'll just say hello back. So what do you think will happen if I take the date command and pipe that into echo? Well, you might think that when I press enter, the date command will pass on the date into echo and it will spit out the date, right? Wrong. Actually, what happened is echo doesn't accept standard input. So what happened here, this is a common mistake actually that people make when using pipelines for the first time. They try to pipe things into echo. Now, echo doesn't accept standard input. In fact, it only accepts command line arguments. So if I try to do this and I type to echo hello, again, even though I'm piping with the date command into it, if I go ahead and press enter, you can see that it's only processed its command line arguments. So the question becomes, how could we pass the data from our pipeline into a command that doesn't accept standard input? Well, the key is to convert the data from standard input into command line arguments so the command can continue to work like normal. So the way that you do that is that instead of piping it into echo directly, you pipe it into something called the Xargs command. Now, the Xargs command will convert the data from standard input and it will put it instead into command line arguments. So if now I do echo, so I basically put it into Xargs and then give Xargs echo to work with, when I press enter now, you can see that now it echoes out the date. Okay, isn't that cool? Now, now I can also give echo its own command line argument. So I could give it also hello, and what will happen is it will now process both, except it will process its own command line arguments first. So that's something to bear in mind, but it did indeed echo both of them out, which is a lot better than we had before. Now we can actually continue to pipe down because the data that comes out is still on standard output. So basically, Xargs is like a little plaster or a little fix for when a command does not accept standard input, but only accepts command line arguments. You can use Xargs to get around the problem, okay, and continue doing your piping. So let's say that we wanted for it to echo out just the day of the week. What we could do is we could say date, pipe that into the cut command, just like we've been doing a million times. Tell it that the delimiter is a space, tell it that we want the first field, and then you could pipe that into echo. Now remember, this isn't going to work because echo doesn't accept standard input, so we convert the data from standard input into command line arguments using Xargs. Tell Xargs, hey, we want you to work with echo, and now we'll see that it pops out the day of the week, which is Monday. So let me give you a bit of an example where this might take you, okay? This Xargs ability, what it might be able to do for you. So, for example, if we take our full date.txt file, we've got some data in here. Let me just create a new document here. I'm going to call it, I'm going to press Control and S to save. Yep, that works. I'm going to call it deleteme.txt. Okay, so I'm going to make that file. I've called it deleteme.txt. Now, when we look, we've got a new file in here called deleteme.txt. Now, there's a command that you'll be coming onto later in the course in the section all about navigating the file system and things like that, which is the section after this one. But there's a command in there called the rm command. Now, the rm command stands for remove. It's the command that deletes stuff. And if I type deleteme.txt and I click enter, watch on the left, watch just over here, okay? You'll notice that the file has just been deleted, okay? So you notice here that we actually gave the rm command a command line argument, okay? We typed it on the command line. We gave it a file name. Now, what we might want to do is we might want to have another file over here, okay, called files to delete.txt. So files to delete.txt. And in there, I'm going to give it the names of fulldate.txt and today.txt. So if I put that in there, fulldate.txt, and we're also going to have, what was the other one? Today.txt. Okay, so we've got a file that contains those two names. Okay, now we can read that file out using the cat command. You've seen this before. Okay, so if I do the cat command and I say files to delete, you see how it gives me the output. Now, I can't just pipe that information into the rm command. Nothing will happen, okay? Because the rm command only accepts command line, the command line arguments. But what I can do is I can read the data. Let me clear the screen. What I can do is I can read the data from files to delete, these file names, and pass it into Xargs. Now, Xargs is going to convert that data into command line arguments for the rm command. Now, the rm command does accept command line arguments. So when we do that, notice if I just pipe directly to the rm command, it doesn't work. It says it's missing an operand, it's missing a command line argument, okay? But if I pipe it into the Xargs command instead and then type rm, watch what happens now over at the left. We notice that the files got deleted because now the rm command could work. What effectively happened, it was as if we wrote rm today.txt and fulldate.txt. Actually, the other way around, because the file, they were written in the other way around in the file. It's as if we did this. Okay, it's as if we wrote out this command here, but instead we just read the file and piped the contents to another command. So you can see that this is how you might potentially use the Xargs command, just as a bit of an example, rather than just us, just using the date command and echo all the time. So over the past 3 videos, we've covered a whole lot of stuff. So let's just try and summarize it all together in one place so that you can feel confident that you've got it all. First of all, you learnt that piping is a process that connects the standard output of one command to the standard input of another. And by the way, if you ever see these two words in orange, std out and std in, from now on, you know that means standard output and standard input respectively. Okay, and std err is standard error, okay? So if you ever see those things around, okay? So piping connects the standard output of one command to the standard input of another. Redirection of standard output breaks pipelines. So if you're making a pipeline and you do some redirection, you've broken your pipeline, the pipeline from that point on will no longer work, okay? So if standard output has just been redirected into a file, by default, it can't be continued to be passed down the pipeline. That is, unless you use the T command. So if you want to save a data snapshot without breaking your pipeline, use the T command instead, and that will make basically an imaginary T junction, just like you might find in pipes of water in your pipeline, so that you can save your data and also have it continue on through the pipeline at the same time. Now, if a command doesn't accept standard input, then as we know, piping connects standard output to standard input. So how can you still use that command in your pipeline? Well, if you still want to pipe to it, even if it doesn't accept standard input, as long as the command accepts command line arguments, you can use the Xargs command instead. And commands that you use with the Xargs command can also still have their own command line arguments besides the ones that you pipe to it. So you can still pipe data to it. You can still pipe data as command line arguments and also give it its own arguments right there on the command line. But just understand that the ones that you type to it on the command line will be processed first. So that's a whole bunch of stuff, guys. This really is the most important part of getting good at the Linux command line. If you can understand and you feel confident in what you've learned in the last 3 videos about piping, you have unlocked the crown jewel of using the Linux command line, and you should be massively proud of yourself. And if you haven't, then just go back, watch these videos as many times as it takes for you to get it down. Take some notes, practice, try stuff out, because I promise you the effort will be worth it. And I'm really proud of you for actually making it this far, and so should you as well. Now, up next, we're going to show you a little trick that's going to make your use of the command line a whole lot easier, and we're going to show you how you can use something called aliases to save your command pipelines with easy to remember names so they can be just used much easier later on. So that once you've written a pipeline, you don't have to write it again, just use the name and it will come up without any errors. So for all that good stuff, to learn about aliases and making shortcuts, I'll see you in the next video.